First of all, I just want to welcome all those people who are now switching from Call of Duty to Battlefield because of the announcement of Battlefield 1. This video, I'm going to try to explain how they can make Battlefield 1 great. Or how they can not make it bad, I should say, because we don't know how good it's going to be. So, obviously, Battlefield 1 trailer came out. I'm not going to show it. You can go find it. It's everywhere. It's World War I. And World War I, for the most part, has been untouchable for first-person shooters in, the modern console era, really. I mean, if you look at Battlefield 1942, 2002, Call of Duty 1, 2003, a year later, those are PC and Xbox original, Xbox One, whatever the original. So, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But World War I has pretty much been untouchable. Why? Because what do you think about when you think about World War I? You think about trench warfare. Right now you're watching footage from a game called Verdun, which is exactly the type of gameplay you would expect from a World War I game. It's trench warfare. It's no movement. It's trenches. It's bunkers. It's camping. There really isn't any way to get around this. And the only way that Battlefield's going to be great is if they make it as uncharacteristically similar to actual World War I as possible. Because World War I is trench warfare. I mean, you had battles that took place over months that the distance gained were yards, not miles, yards. You would gain yards over months. That little amount of movement cannot be converted to anything that's exciting for first-person shooters, especially with Call of Duty as your counterpart. So, if you know anything about history, obviously World War I was not only fought on the Western Front. That's what everyone thinks of when they think about World War I. You think about trenches, you think about gas, you think about tanks, all on the Western Front. It's the most popular image of the war is the Western Front and the trench warfare. This was fought on a global scale. You had fighting going on in Africa. You had fighting going on in the Balkans. You had naval combat. There were so many innovations as well. This is why it's a great war to cover for a game, but for the reason that of trench warfare, it's been untouchable. So I'm excited to see what they do with it. But as far as inventions, you had the invention of the airplane and air combat for the first time. You had the invention of tanks and tank combat. You had the first use of machine guns on a large scale. You had gas. You had mechanized warfare, other than just tanks, other things. You had blimps. You had the first raids ever by the first blitz, if you want to call it. Not really a blitz. They were done by hot air balloons. Well, not hot air balloons, by Zeppelins. You had all these new ways to fight combat, which also led to the huge amount of casualties and killed during World War I. But again, for the reason of it being mostly trench warfare, it's why it's been untouchable. So, like I said, they have to make it as unsimilar to the Western Front as humanly possible. They have to cover it somehow. That's why I'm a little excited, because it's like they're going to have to eventually take care of trench warfare in the campaign as well as the multiplayer. And I'm just wondering how they're going to do that, because you don't want to make it too easy and it just like unrealistic World War I expectations where you can just run from bunker to bunker with like zero casualties. But you want to make it ridiculously realistic, where you would send 10,000 guys, over a quarter mile of no man's land, and they would all get killed before they got to the bunker, because that wouldn't be fun to play. So, for those reasons, obviously no one's made a World War I multiplayer game. There's tons of World War I games out there, like Verdun, which is multiplayer too, but it is strictly, these types of maps. It's exactly what you would think of when playing a World War I game. It's trenches, it's difficult. Everyone camps, obviously. It's rifles. You get shot way before you get to bunkers, because obviously the land is mostly flat. You have some shell holes, and you get shot by guys who are sitting in bunkers. That's what it was like. Another thing I want to talk about is the air combat, obviously, and also the vehicles in general. The planes I'm excited for the most by far, because obviously it's the first air combat ever was in World War I. Planes weren't invented too long, weren't invented too much before World War One, and obviously, actually, if you wanted to get some history lesson here, they weren't initially used as fighters or bombers even. They were used as recon, and what would happen is you would have recon from both countries flying over each other's lines, and actually sometimes they would actually see each other. So what they started doing was bringing up pistols, like little tiny revolvers, and they would shoot at each other. And then eventually they started bringing bombs that they held in their lap, and they used to throw it over the side at the lines. Now, eventually, later in the war, they would actually bring some new technology to the planes, where you could have larger planes with a lot of bombs, and also machine guns, which I'm not sure if it's called something, but there was a special machine where you put them at the front of the nose, and it would shoot right past the propeller. Now, the first models would actually shoot the propeller off, and the plane would crash. They invented some kind of simple machine that made it so that it would only shoot when the propeller wasn't in front of the nose. But too much of a history lesson there. Tank warfare, I'm pretty excited for that, because obviously tanks in World War One were extremely slow, extremely unreliable, and were bullet magnets, obviously. But there's nothing that could really take them out except for inaccurate artillery, which was inaccurate, so you had to get lucky. Another thing is horse combat. That looks like fun. A lot of melee weapons being shown in the beta. Well, not in the beta, but in the trailer. And I'm mostly really excited because no big company has made a World War One game for a multiplayer scale with vehicles. I think that's why so many Call of Duty players are shifting, because they get another. Call of Duty is just going more and more into the future. The most that Battlefield did, Battlefield never went into the future. They went to modern times, and they never went beyond that. Like, what is modern now is as far as they went. This is the second or third game in a row, I think, Call of Duty has gone into the future. Nobody wanted it. The space combat is like, that's kind of cool, I guess, whatever. But everyone wants to go back to World War II, because the last World War II game was, I don't know, it was at least last generation console. Nothing this generation as far as between the Battlefield and Call of Duty franchises. If you're just wondering, my favorite Battlefield game, I started playing at 1942 when that came out. Very long time ago, when I was much younger. Can still remember playing it on a very old PC, but it was still doable. My favorite Battlefield is by far Bad Company 2, the most hours. I'm hoping that they made it a lot more like Bad Company 2 than Battlefield 4, but apparently, this is a secret, Battlefield Bad Company 3 is supposedly not in production, but they haven't written it off, so I'm excited about that too. But getting back to Battlefield 1, Battlefield 1, the 5th Battlefield, I'm super excited for it. I just hope that it's not too characteristically similar to actual World War 1 and a game like Verdun, because if it is, it's just going to be a camping, sniping fest, and it's going to be unplayable. But I don't think they would make a game like that. I think they would only make a game that everyone could have fun with, and it wouldn't be a camping, sniping fest. I think they are going to do a great job with this game. I sincerely hope so. But if they follow my simple steps, it's going to make the game great. Not great again, but just great. Thanks for watching, guys. If you guys have other suggestions for the game, I'd love to know them. Leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next one.